everything you heard about the impeachment of Trump, about the press treating Boris Johnson, is amplified 100-fold in Israel. So what the hell is going on in the Israeli elections? This story is a freaking thriller that could be made into a Hollywood movie, but nobody knows it because the only Hebrew press you're somehow getting outside of Israel is just the mainstream media translating to your mainstream media, which are absolutely not delivering you the real story. So this is the story about this guy, who is being challenged by this guy. On the left is Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel since 2009, but he also was the Prime Minister in 1996. And on the right is a general, the former head of the Israeli army, Benny Gantz. But it's not just him, because actually he assembled this guy and that guy, who are also the former heads of the Israeli army, like some kind of military junta. And they also took this guy, who used to work for the formerly biggest and most corrupt Israeli newspaper, and altogether they are representing that group. That is the building of the Israeli Supreme Court. And to understand the Israeli story, you have to understand the story of the Supreme Court and the judicial system. But also you have to go back to 1948. We're not gonna do that. So the judicial system, led by that guy, who used to be the Attorney General of the army under that guy, indicted Netanyahu. Therefore, this guy decided to oust Netanyahu during the elections. Now, the people of Israel are split. Half of them say it's a freaking conspiracy to remove the prime minister, and the other half, led by this group, ran on the ticket that he's a corrupt prime minister needing to be ousted. After a deadlock of 3 elections, they got 62 out of 120, a sliver of a majority in the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, and they decided to legislate retroactive laws forbidding a man with an indictment to run for prime minister. That is, we can't beat you at the ballot box, we'll just outlaw you. Since this looked like a freaking coup, the head of the Knesset decided he'll stall the decision. So that guy went to these guys in the Supreme Court to oust the head of the Knesset, which of course they said it's illegal to filibuster this decision, even though the law, which I won't cite here because it's in Hebrew, specifically allows it. So after that happened, the head of the Knesset resigned and said the law is on his side and he won't do it, so we were forced to elect a new head of Knesset. Netanyahu said that if they elect a head of Knesset from the opposition, all types of unity government will cease. So that guy, with the support of his rival's camp, was elected head of Knesset under the opposition of his own camp, which led to the breakup of this junta's party, which left this guy completely alone in negotiations with that guy and forced them into a unity government because of the coronavirus. So since no party in Israel for the last 40 years had the majority vote in the parliament, no party can assemble its own government. So they always have to have a coalition. So these guys signed a coalition agreement, but because they feared that these guys in the Supreme Court will oust Netanyahu, that they will rule against the freaking law that a man with an indictment can't run for the office of prime minister. So these guys signed a coalition agreement stating that first Netanyahu will rule for 18 months and then Gantz will be the prime minister for 18 months. But because these guys want to oust that guy against the freaking law, they had to sign in the coalition agreement that if these guys oust him, then they all go for an election. So now these guys in the Supreme Court are hearing petitions, there's like 7 of them at this point, to both oust Netanyahu and cancel the coalition agreement between the elected members of parliament and leaders of the biggest parties, making everyone in the freaking country ask themselves, why the hell are we going for elections if these guys are gonna cancel the results? So at this point, nobody knows whether we're going for new elections, and this story is just here to warn the freedom-loving people of the Western world, because Israel is the exemplar case of how a democracy can go awry, everything you heard about the impeachment of Trump, about the press treating Boris Johnson, is amplified 100-fold in Israel. We do not have a Fox News, so everything goes through the filter of a single leftist opinion in the mainstream media. Since Israel was established almost as a communist state under Ben Gurion, every government system was filled with his followers, and over 70 years later, we're still suffering the consequences because the deep state that you heard of is amplified 1,000-fold in Israel. Israel, at this point, is getting closer to a cold civil war, and this channel is going to be my way of telling you the story that you're not getting from your own news, and that I feel we have no choice but to tell ourselves and to warn you from not repeating our mistakes. In the future videos, I'll go into what happened with Netanyahu's cases and how he got indicted, the history of the deep state in the judicial system, and huge stories of corruption that each of them can become a Hollywood movie and you never freaking heard of them. I hope this will be interesting to you. This is not going to be a channel about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe and share because we really have no other way of delivering this information to you.